The sea has always carried secrets, hidden deep where sunlight fades. Beneath the rolling tides, stories are whispered in waves. Tonight, we journey into the abyss, where silence breathes like a living thing. There, in the endless blue, legends stir, older than stone or flame. They speak of a presence born not of man, but of water itself. A figure shaped by tides, by coral, by the quiet rhythm of the deep. He is called the Deepborn Poseidon, a guardian of balance and flow. Not a warrior of storms, but a keeper of harmony and calm. Sailors once swore they felt him when waves gentled against broken masts. Islanders still tell children to listen, for the ocean sings his name. A song hidden in the call of whales, in the hush of retreating surf. No temple holds him, no scripture binds him, yet he endures. As long as waves rise and fall, his story moves with the tide. Close your eyes and hear it, the ocean's pulse beneath your breath. Each ripple, each hush, a reminder that the sea is alive. And tonight, we follow it down, into the mystery that waits below. The sea is more than water. It is a voice, soft yet unyielding, echoing across centuries. Every tide carries a whisper, and every wave holds a story. Among these countless murmurs, one name drifts again and again. The Deepborn Poseidon, not a ruler with crown and throne, but a guardian formed by the ocean itself. Legends say his presence is not bound to a single place. He moves with the tides, unseen yet always near. Fishermen once spoke of strange calm after storms. They said his hand touched the waters, steadying the restless waves. Children were told of glowing trails of plankton. These were said to be the footprints of Poseidon himself. Sailors swore that dolphins circling their ships were not by chance. They were his messengers, guiding safe passage across dark waters. Yet no one has seen him as one sees another man. His form is spoken of in symbols, in signs left behind. A sudden stillness when fear should rise, a guiding light when darkness spreads across the sea. Such moments are woven into the fabric of the myth, and myths, like waves, are carried forward by memory. The Deepborn Poseidon was never feared, only respected. Unlike tales of wrathful gods, his was a gentler song, one of balance, of reminder, of quiet guardianship. The people who lived by the sea knew this well. They believed he lived not above the waters, but within them. He was the ocean's own breath, its pulse, its steady rhythm. When storms gathered and clouds darkened the horizon, they prayed. Not for the storm to vanish, but for the guardian to guide. Prayers rose not in temples of stone, but in whispers to the waves. Mothers taught children to listen for his song in shells. Fathers told stories of ships saved by unseen hands. Travelers recalled nights when glowing fish lit a path to shore. These were not miracles, they said, but Poseidon's quiet work. Always near, never demanding worship, never seeking tribute. He was presence itself. And that was enough. The elders taught that the sea was alive with memory. Each tide carried fragments of stories told long before. Each current bore witness to joy, sorrow, and survival. And in that endless memory, Poseidon was a keeper, a reminder that the ocean was more than resource or passage. It was a living realm, vast and mysterious, yet kind. The whisper of the sea carried this truth gently. It was said that if you sat by the shore at dusk, you could hear him, not in words, but in rhythm. The pull of the tide, the hush of the surf, the distant song of whales. Together, they formed a language older than humankind. Poseidon spoke in that language, and only the patient could understand. To those who listened, the sea revealed balance. To those who ignored, The sea offered silence, nothing more. And so the legend endured, passed through generations. The whisper of the sea carried not fear, but reverence. Children fell asleep to stories of the Deepborn's care. Elders watched horizons with quiet respect for unseen guidance. And in each new dawn, as waves kissed the shore, his presence lingered. The Deepborn Poseidon, forever hidden, forever near. They say the ocean does not forget, for within its depths lies the oldest memory of all. Before the first sails were raised, before the first oars touched water, the sea already held life. It cradled lightless creatures, silent forests of coral, and rivers of current flowing without end. From this ancient cradle, the deep-born Poseidon was said to emerge. Not born of flesh, nor shaped by human hand, but woven from tide and stone. He was the sea's own reflection, a figure of breath and rhythm. Where coral grew into towers, they became his bones. Where currents intertwined, they formed his pulse. Where whales sang across the vast, they gave him voice. And so the deep-born was not created once, but eternally. Each rise of the tide was his birth, each fall his rest. The people who listened believed his spirit renewed with every wave. He was a cycle, endless and unbroken, as natural as dawn. Some legends say his first stirring came with the birth of light. When the sun first touched the water, he rose from shadow. He gazed not upward, but outward, across the unending blue. His purpose was never conquest, never dominion, but harmony. The balance between silence and song, between stillness and storm. Fishermen told of seashells that carried his hum. Children placed shells to their ears and swore they heard breathing. That breath, they said, was the deep-born reminding them of the ocean's life. The elders taught that he was born in darkness, yet not of fear. The deep was his home, not prison, for it held the oldest light. Creatures glowing in endless blackness were his companions. They followed him, lanterns of the abyss, wherever he drifted. Turtles, gentle and slow, became his guardians of the shallow reefs. Dolphins leapt as heralds, guiding him toward the surface world. Even the smallest fish shimmered as his messengers, carrying glints of his presence. He was not separate from the ocean, but the ocean made visible. Every crest of wave was his hand, every surge his breath. To stand by the sea was to feel him, whether one believed or not. Travelers from distant shores told of a strange comfort at sea. When fear of the unknown grew heavy, a quiet calm would return. They described it as if the sea itself listened and answered. That answer, they said, was Poseidon's presence. The birth of the deep-born was never fixed to a moment. It was a story retold with each tide, refreshed with every generation. Mothers sang lullabies of his first rising. They said he rose not with thunder, but with silence. He walked the ocean floor, brushing kelp as though touching grass. He lifted coral stones as one might hold relics. And he listened, always listened, to the language of the current. It was in listening that his life began, again and again. No temple was needed, for the sea itself was his shrine. The horizon was his altar, the waves his prayers. Every life drawn from the water carried his blessing. Every pearl, every shell was a gift of his silent hand. Thus, the deep-born Poseidon was born countless times, born in every storm, in every calm, in every whisper of tide. He was not bound to beginning nor to ending, but to flow. The ocean's eternal cycle was his birthright and his home. And so the people believed, and so the legend endured. The deep-born Poseidon, forever born, forever breathing, forever the sea. Beneath the rolling surface lies a world few have truly seen. It is a kingdom without walls, silent and vast beyond measure. Here, sunlight fades until only shadows weave across the water. And deeper still, a realm begins where light dares not linger. This is the domain of the forgotten depths. It is said Poseidon wanders there, drifting among forests unseen. Forests of kelp, swaying like cathedrals raised by unseen hands. Their fronds stretch upward, reaching for a sun that never arrives. Fish shimmer through them, scales catching fragments of fading glow. Beyond the forests lie valleys of coral, broken yet alive. They rise in towers, glowing faintly in hues of blue and green. Anemones sway like lanterns, guiding paths through silent corridors. Every stone, every reef carries the slow patience of centuries. And within those ancient structures, secrets rest untouched. The Deepborn Poseidon is said to breathe life here. His presence moves through the currents, unseen but felt by all. Creatures stir when he passes, as though answering an unspoken call. Lanternfish gather like stars scattered across a midnight sky. Their glow turns the abyss into a mirror of the heavens. Whales drift near, their songs carrying across immeasurable distances. Their voices are the oldest hymns, vibrating through bone and sea. Each note echoes the memory of the Deepborn's birth. It is music, prayer, and history bound together in sound. In this silent cathedral, Poseidon is never alone. The creatures of the deep are his companions, his endless choir. They do not bow, they do not kneel. They simply live. And by living, they honor the guardian who drifts among them. The forgotten depths are not silent emptiness, but filled with voice. A chorus sung in movement and glow, in the quiet of tides. Travelers who claim to have glimpsed it speak of wonder. They describe caverns carved from coral, vast as palaces. They tell of rivers flowing upside down, currents twisting like braids. They remember shadows vast and slow, gliding without shape. Some believed these shadows were Poseidon's form itself. Others thought they were his guardians, watching the borders of his home. But all agreed the depths were alive with presence, not of danger, but of balance, as though guided by unseen hands. Children listening to these tales would close their eyes. They would imagine a palace beneath the waves, glowing in silence. They dreamed of walking among fish, of breathing the ocean's breath. For the forgotten depths were not feared, but cherished. They were the cradle of mystery, the heart of the sea. And Poseidon, wandering within them, was keeper of that heart. The elders said every tide carried whispers from the depths. They believed shells held echoes of the abyss. When placed to the ear, one could hear currents flowing, and within those currents, the breath of the Deepborn himself. The depths reminded all who listened of the ocean's patience. It was not hurried nor restless, but endless and sure. Like Poseidon, it endured, unseen yet ever present. And so the legend grew with each telling. The forgotten depths became more than shadow, more than silence. They became a symbol of hidden truth, waiting for those who listen. For Poseidon's world is not found in brightness, but in mystery. It waits below, timeless, untouched, forever breathing in the deep. And there, the deep-born Poseidon walks still, in silence and in song. Above the sea, clouds gather and winds begin to howl. Sails strain, trees bend, and waves rise in restless rhythm. The storm is coming, and with it, the call of the ocean. For the sea does not rage without reason. It remembers its balance. And when the balance is tested, the deep-born Poseidon stirs. Legends say storms awaken him, not to punish, but to guide. He is not the wrath within thunder, but the calm within chaos. When lightning splits the horizon, he is the stillness beneath. When waves crash with fury, he is the rhythm that steadies them. Sailors who braved the tempest told of sudden quiet. The sky remained fierce, yet the sea grew strangely calm. Their ships rocked, yet found no ruin in the towering waves. They believed Poseidon's hand steadied the waters below, not to erase the storm, but to keep the sea from breaking. The storm above was nature's voice, wild and untamed. But the Deepborn was the balance that kept it whole. He walked the ocean floor as winds tore across the surface. Each step of his was a counter to the chaos above. Where whirlpools threatened, his presence broke their pull. Where tides surged, his calm slowed their force. Fishermen prayed not for storms to vanish, but for guidance. They asked Poseidon to steady the sea, to lend safe passage. And many claimed their prayers were answered in subtle ways. A ship lost in waves suddenly found dolphins leading them. A crew adrift saw glowing plankton outline a safe path. These signs were said to be Poseidon's voice in the storm. Not loud, not commanding, but gentle, almost hidden. For he was not thunder, but the hush that follows. He was not lightning, but the glow that lingers after. The call of the storm was also the call of life. It reminded sailors that the sea was vast, alive, and untamed. Poseidon's presence did not silence the storm, it revealed meaning. The ocean, he reminded them, was not enemy, but teacher. Every storm carried lessons: patience, humility, respect. Those who listened understood and returned safely to shore. Those who ignored often found themselves humbled by the sea, not punished, but reminded of its greater strength. Island elders told children to never fear the storm. Instead, they taught them to hear Poseidon's voice within it. The low rumble of thunder was his reminder of power. The sudden calm between gusts was his gift of balance. The rains themselves were his blessing, feeding rivers and soil. Even destruction was followed by renewal, as reefs regrew stronger. And so the storm was not only danger, but also promise. The Deepborn was the guardian who wove promise into chaos. He did not end the storm, but ensured the sea endured. Sailors sang to him in the darkest nights. Their songs were simple, filled with gratitude, not demand. They thanked him for guiding hands unseen, for balance kept. Some claimed to hear echoes in the wind, deep and resonant. Others swore the waves shifted in rhythm with their chants. And so the call of the storm became a sacred song. It was not a hymn of fear, but of reverence. For in every gust and every crash, Poseidon was present. He was the guardian who did not shield from struggle. Instead, he gave strength to endure, to learn, to survive. The storm's roar was nature's truth, the Deepborn's calm, its echo. Together, they formed the unbroken cycle of sea and sky. And so the legend of Poseidon grew with every tempest, not as destroyer, but as keeper of balance in chaos. The call of the storm was the call of the Deepborn, and in every thunderclap, his presence was felt, unseen yet near. Stories of the sea have always carried mystery across distant shores. Long before charts and compasses, sailors trusted in tales and signs. They believed the ocean itself spoke in patterns, guiding those who listened. And in those whispers, they found traces of the Deepborn Poseidon. Not through sight, but through subtle wonders only felt in passing. Travelers told of sudden calm when storms should have torn sails apart. A hush fell, as if unseen hands steadied the restless waves. They swore a guiding force kept them afloat when hope was gone. Others recalled dolphins leaping before their ships in rhythmic arcs. They did not see chance. but a message of safe direction. The dolphins, they said, were Poseidon's companions, his gentle heralds. In their play, the sailors found comfort, a sign of care. On moonless nights, glowing plankton lit the sea like scattered stars. Paths of light unfurled before drifting vessels, clear as roadways. To weary crews, these shining trails felt like a silent gift. They believed Poseidon painted the sea to guide them home. Fishermen returning at dawn often found flocks of seabirds circling. Not predators, but markers of safe waters rich with promise. Such signs were seen as blessings, the Deepborn's unseen presence. Every story carried the same quiet truth. He was always near, never demanding, never thundering, but guiding with subtle grace. Islanders passed these tales to children as lessons of respect. They taught them to look, to listen, to feel the rhythm. For Poseidon spoke not in words, but in wonders of the sea. A sudden stillness on churning water was his reassurance. A distant whale's song carried across waves was his reminder. The crash of surf against rocks could hold his quiet echo. Each sign, no matter how small, was woven into memory. Generations of sailors carried these stories like compass points, not fixed on maps, but etched into heart and faith. They did not speak of gods demanding tribute or fear. They spoke of a guardian whose guidance was subtle yet sure. Some said he walked beside them when no land was in sight. Others felt his breath in the wind that filled their sails. And when ships returned safely, families gave thanks at the shore. They left shells, bread, or water as offerings to the tide. Not as payment, but as gratitude for unseen kindness. Even strangers from faraway lands heard these stories. Merchants carried them across oceans, weaving Poseidon's name into lore. Each telling grew, yet always held the same gentle thread. The Deepborn was not a destroyer, but a watchful guide. He guarded travelers not with force, but with balance. He reminded all who sailed that the sea was alive. It listened, it cared, it answered in its own way. Children lay awake at night, imagining glowing paths across waves. They dreamed of dolphins guiding ships under silver starlight. They felt no fear of the sea, only reverence for it. The sailors' tales became lullabies, promises of safety in storm. And so the legend endured, stronger with each voyage. For every sailor who returned told of a sign received. Every whisper on the wind, every shimmer in the tide was proof. Proof that the deep-born Poseidon walked with them unseen. Proof that no voyage was ever truly alone. And so travelers carried his story, not as myth, but as memory. For in every safe return, they felt his presence near. The deep-born Poseidon, forever guiding, forever watching in silence. Beneath the endless blue, the ocean holds secrets older than memory. Legends say the deep-born Poseidon was not born, but awakened. He rose from the first silence when the seas were still forming. His essence was woven into the rhythm of tides and storms, not as a ruler with throne, but as a guardian of balance. His presence was felt in the deep trenches where no light reached. There the earth breathed slowly, and currents whispered unseen truths. From that stillness, Poseidon learned the language of the sea. He listened to coral growing, to whales singing across horizons. Every creature, great and small, carried stories of the ocean's soul. And Poseidon became its keeper, bound not by chains, but harmony. Ancient sailors told of his first sign, a tide that rose unnaturally calm. It carried their ships safely through reefs they feared to cross. They left offerings of shells and songs, honoring the unseen hand. Generations later, island elders added their voices to the tale. They said Poseidon did not seek worship, only remembrance. for remembrance kept the sea alive in human hearts. Without it, the ocean would become mere water, not living spirit. So songs were sung not in fear, but in gratitude and awe. Children learned to greet the waves as kin, not strangers. Fishermen cast nets with prayers for balance, not abundance alone. They knew the ocean gave, and so they gave back respect. In distant ports, merchants repeated the stories with reverence. They claimed calm seas followed when Poseidon's name was spoken kindly. The tale spread, shaping how strangers saw the endless water. No longer an enemy, the sea became a vast companion. Poseidon's legend stitched cultures together with threads of shared wonder. Some painted murals of waves, cradling a figure of calm strength. Others carved symbols of dolphins and spirals into their boats. All were reminders of the guardian watching, unseen yet near. Travelers from deserts carried seashells as charms for safe passage. Mountain dwellers poured water at shrines, calling him across distance. In every culture, the Deepborn found a place in memory. For he was not bound to one land, but to the living sea. And the sea touched every shore, carried every song, linked every soul. Even now, whispers say his presence drifts through ocean winds. A sudden stillness before storm, a shimmer on moonlit water. These are not accidents, but echoes of the guardian's steps. The story of his origin is not told as birth or end. It is told as awakening, as timeless as the tide itself. Poseidon, the Deepborn, was and is forever part of the sea. His story continues not in temples, but in every wave and song. And as long as sailors remember, his presence will never fade. The ocean floor is a world unseen, yet alive with endless wonder. Here the deep-born Poseidon walked where sunlight never touched. Coral cities rose like castles, glowing with colors unknown above. Fish shimmered like sparks, weaving through caverns carved by time. Whales passed in silence, their songs echoing across unseen miles. Poseidon listened, for the sea spoke in voices vast and gentle. Each current told a story, each tide carried memory. And in that realm, he found the harmony he guarded. It was said he often rested near the deep trenches. There, bioluminescent creatures lit his path in soft cascades of light. Some sailors swore these glowing trails surfaced as ribbons in the waves. To them, it was proof Poseidon was walking far below. Children on islands dreamed of these glowing paths at night. They pictured the Deepborn moving like a shadow of calm, not ruler nor king, but guardian keeping balance in silence. In his presence, sharks swam gently, and currents softened their pull. Predators and prey alike drifted in harmony for fleeting moments. This balance was his gift, a reminder of unity beneath chaos. Legends grew that Poseidon could summon schools of silver fish. They would circle lost vessels, guiding them toward safe waters. No one saw him, but the patterns spoke of unseen will. The ocean itself became his language, vast yet subtle. And people learned to read it, to see his hand within it. Sailors claimed a sudden calm was his quiet reassurance. Fishermen spoke of plentiful catches after songs of gratitude. Merchants prayed before journeys, not for riches, but for balance. For Poseidon cared not for wealth, but for respect of the sea. The deep world he walked was not empty, but alive. Every shell carried the rhythm of waves, every stone a memory. Even silence was not absence, but music too deep to hear. Poseidon was part of that silence, steady as the tide. He was the breath between storms, the pause within waves. And his watch extended not just below, but to all who sailed. For he listened to songs sung on deck and in harbors. He heard lullabies whispered to children with seashells in hand. He knew gratitude, fear, hope, all carried on the wind to sea. The deep world taught him patience, the kind only eternity grants. To wait as coral grows, as reefs heal, as storms pass. And so he guarded balance, not with haste, but with timeless care. Travelers spoke of dreams where they glimpsed him walking below, a figure vast, yet calm, whose presence brought peace, not fear. They awoke with a sense of safety, as though blessed. These dreams spread, shaping belief that Poseidon touched them in sleep. He reached not only through waves, but through hearts open to him. Thus, the deep world was not distant, but close, always near. For the sea connected all life, from shore to trench, and Poseidon was its breath, unseen yet felt in every tide. Children asked elders what he looked like, but no one knew. They answered with stories. He was as shifting as the sea. Sometimes a shadow, sometimes a light, always more than form. For to see him was less important than to feel him. And all who listened felt him. In silence, in storm, in calm. The deep world was his home. But memory made him everywhere. Every wave, every song, every shimmering path was his echo. And so Poseidon remained, the unseen guardian walking in silence. The keeper of balance, the heart of the sea eternal. Above the waves, sailors watched the skies for signs of change. Storms brewed quickly, and winds carried whispers across the sea. But below, in the quiet depths, Poseidon's gaze never wavered. He moved with the currents, guiding them like a steady hand. The ocean was his canvas, and balance was his art. Every tide, every ripple, was part of a vast design. And though mortals could not see, they felt his influence daily. Legends spoke of times when seas threatened to swallow entire fleets. Waves towered high, winds screamed, and fear took hold of sailors. Yet, in the heart of chaos, a strange calm would emerge. Ships once on the brink of ruin suddenly found gentle passage. Crews swore they felt a presence holding the waters steady. They knew it was not chance, but the Deepborn guiding them. Children on shore would listen wide-eyed to these wondrous tales. Each word painted Poseidon not as destroyer, but as protector. He was the silence inside the storm, the stillness beneath waves. Fishermen often left offerings of shells arranged in spirals. They believed the shape echoed the rhythm of his guiding hand. When tides carried the shells back, they felt their prayers answered. The gifts were not taken, but returned, a sign of balance. In this, they learned Poseidon's wisdom. Giving and receiving were one. To live with the sea was to live in harmony, not conquest. Merchants, too, honored him, whispering thanks before voyages began. They sought not riches, but safe passage through waters unknown. And often, their ships returned with both wealth and safety intact. They credited Poseidon's quiet watch for their survival and success. In faraway lands, the stories grew into songs and symbols. Some carved dolphins into harbor stones as guardians of entry. Others painted spirals on sails, believing they drew his blessing. No matter the form, all gestures spoke of respect and awe. For the Deepborn was everywhere the sea touched, always present. Travelers returning from distant journeys carried new versions of his legend. Some said they dreamed of him walking across glowing reefs. Others swore the waves moved in rhythm with their heartbeats. Though details differed, the heart of the story stayed the same. Poseidon was not ruler, but guardian, patient and eternal. He guided, never demanded, and his presence was gift, not burden. Elders reminded their children, to forget him was to forget the sea, and to forget the sea was to forget life itself. So memory became devotion, and devotion became tradition. Songs were passed down like treasures, sung by fires on shore. Each note carried gratitude for safe returns, for balance preserved. And in those songs, Poseidon lived, timeless as the tide. For even if unseen, he was felt in every heartbeat of the ocean. Whales carried his song deeper, dolphins danced his rhythm higher. Currents spread his presence from one end of the sea to another. No sailor, no islander, no child was ever truly alone. As long as the ocean breathed, Poseidon's story breathed with it. He was not an ending, but a reminder of continuity. Not a myth, but memory alive in every tide and storm. And so the people spoke of him not in fear, but in reverence. The deep-born Poseidon, the unseen hand, the everlasting guardian, ever patient, ever present, ever watching in silence. Waves carry not only salt and foam, but also stories across time. Each story is a fragment of memory, shaped by wind and tide. Among these stories, the legend of the deep-born Poseidon endured. It lived in whispers, in songs, in dreams shared by generations. Some tales spoke of him rising from the depths in silence, not as a giant with fury, but as calm made visible. A presence vast, yet gentle, that filled the sea with balance. Fishermen swore they felt him while casting nets at dawn. The water beneath their boats grew steady, guiding their hands. Nets returned with just enough catch, never too much. It was his lesson. Take what is given, honor the rest. Merchants on long voyages told of sudden guiding stars above. When charts failed, the sky revealed new constellations to follow. They believed Poseidon placed them, lights of the sea mirrored above. In harbors, elders taught children to place shells at shorelines. Each shell was a word of gratitude carried into the tide. The tide, in turn, carried their voices back to Poseidon, not as prayer, but as part of the ocean's eternal song. And the children learned that harmony was stronger than fear. Storms still came, but they were not seen as curses. They were reminders that balance included both calm and chaos. The deep-born's hand was not to erase, but to steady. Sailors said the proof was in moments between waves. That pause, that breath, when the sea held them safe. It was in those moments that Poseidon's presence was certain. Travelers from mountains, far from the ocean, still knew his name. They heard it in rivers, in rains, in water flowing home. For Poseidon was not bound to seas alone, but to all waters. The rivers were his veins, the lakes his resting mirrors. Even clouds carried whispers of him when storms formed above. Thus, his legend spread beyond the shores, beyond the horizon. No culture claimed him holy, for he belonged to all. Each language called him differently, yet the essence was the same. The guardian of waters, the keeper of balance, the silent guide. Scholars once tried to write his story in books and scrolls, but the sea reminded them that memory was greater than ink. Waves washed away records, storms scattered libraries into silence. Yet the tale lived on, untouchable, carried in hearts instead. For Poseidon was not a story to own, but to share. He was a rhythm, a song, a breath within all life. And no parchment could hold what the ocean itself carried. At night, when fires dimmed, storytellers returned to his memory. They spoke not of power, but of gentleness, of unseen care. They reminded listeners that strength was not only in force. True strength was balance, patience, the wisdom to endure. And the deep-born Poseidon embodied this wisdom, timeless as tides. Children drifted to sleep to the cadence of these words. They dreamed of dolphins, of glowing waters, of storms that calmed. In their dreams, Poseidon walked beside them, vast but kind. When they awoke, the ocean seemed closer, more familiar, alive. The legend was not only past, but present in every moment. Every drop of rain, every crash of surf was his voice. Not commanding, not demanding, but reminding, always reminding. And so part 9 of his story was not about beginnings, nor was it about endings, for Poseidon had none. It was about continuity, about memory carried in every wave. The deep-born Poseidon, eternal, unseen, forever walking the waters. The ocean has many layers, each with secrets hidden in silence. Above, sunlight sparkles, painting waves with colors of the sky. Below, shadows stretch across canyons and ridges no eyes see. And deeper still, there is a quiet, older than memory itself. In this depth, the presence of the deep-born Poseidon was strongest. Not in storms or in roaring waves, but in stillness eternal. It was said he moved like thought, faster than any current. The sea was his breath, and every swell a gentle exhale. Travelers whispered that dreams carried them to his hidden realm. They spoke of glowing gardens, where corals shimmered like stars. Creatures of silver light danced in harmony, unafraid and free. These visions were not feared, but embraced as gifts of trust. The people believed Poseidon shared glimpses to remind them of balance. Balance not just of sea, but of all life connected. For water flowed through every being, binding them to the deep. To honor this, villages created festivals at turning of tides. Lanterns floated across waters, mirrors of stars above. Each lantern carried a wish, not for wealth or power, but for harmony, for safe journeys, for unity with the sea. Children laughed as they set lanterns adrift, hands still wet. Elders whispered blessings, their words joining the rhythm of waves. And the lanterns drifted out until horizons swallowed their light. The ocean answered with a hush, calm and vast, accepting. Fishermen swore catches grew plentiful after each lantern night. Sailors claimed storms parted to grant them smoother passage. It was as if Poseidon himself heard and answered gently. These traditions grew not out of fear, but gratitude. The sea was not enemy nor ruler, but eternal companion. Through devotion, people learned patience, and patience gave them peace. Even merchants, hardened by trade, softened at lantern festivals. They remembered that riches were fleeting, but the ocean was constant. And so they honored Poseidon, the unseen hand guiding their fate. Songs sung that night carried across waves, voices blending as one. They were not hymns of worship, but songs of companionship. For Poseidon was not above them, but among them always. Stories told around fires spoke of him walking unseen, sometimes as a shimmer, sometimes as a shadow, always present. Children clung to these tales, comforted by the thought of protection. They did not fear the sea, for the sea was family. Every tide that rose was like a heartbeat steady and true. Every ebb a reminder that all things must return in time. Scholars traveling from distant lands noted these customs with wonder. They saw not fear of God, but partnership with the ocean. And they realized wisdom lay not in control, but in harmony. The Deepborn's legend became lesson, carried beyond coastal shores. It spoke of patience to farmers, waiting on rains for crops. It spoke of balance to kings, weighing justice in decisions. For all water was connected, and Poseidon touched it all. His voice was heard in rivers that carved valleys through stone, in raindrops that kissed leaves before falling to earth below, in the hush of lakes reflecting stars in still midnight. Everywhere water moved, his story was whispered like breath. And so his presence expanded, not as ruler, but as memory, not confined to one sea, but endless as the cycle of life. The people did not question his reality, for it was lived. Lived in storms, survived, in journeys completed, in harmony preserved. And they knew the Deepborn was not myth, but eternal truth. Not a god to worship, but a guardian to remember. A guide walking forever in silence, patient as the tide. This was the heart of Part 10, the ocean's own lesson. That to live was to flow, to balance, to return. And in every return, Poseidon waited, smiling in the depths. The sea holds no ending, only cycles flowing without pause. Stories like waves rise, crest, and return to the deep. The tale of the deep-born Poseidon is no different, eternal. It begins in silence and continues in whispers across waters. Those who listen can still feel him in every tide's breath. Children by the shore hear the ocean hum like a lullaby. Sailors on endless voyages find calm in the quiet between storms. Fishermen know the rhythm of their nets echoes his guidance. Villages remember lantern nights when wishes met the horizon. Every song sung to the sea carries his memory forward. He is not worshipped as ruler, but remembered as guardian. The unseen companion who walks beside every traveler in water. Legends tell of him not in power, but in patience. His strength was balance, his gift was presence, timeless and vast. And though no one may see him, all have felt him. In the hush after thunder, in the calm before dawn, in the steady return of waves shaping shores again and again. The Deepborn story is a mirror of life itself. No beginning, no final end, only movement and return. Those who understand this find peace in the rhythm of tides. They see storms not as punishment, but as balance restored. They see calm not as absence, but as gift of harmony. And in their hearts, Poseidon walks with them, unseen but near. He is the echo in seashells, the glimmer in waves at dusk. The laughter of dolphins, the song of whales, the hush of reefs. He is the unseen line connecting rivers, rain, and sea as one. Travelers bring his memory across lands, carrying whispers inland. Even far from the ocean, his presence is in every drop. A reminder that water binds all things, flowing endlessly onward. So when people speak of Poseidon, they do not speak of myth. They speak of memory, of presence, of the ocean alive in them. They pass it on not as command, but as gift to children. A gift wrapped in songs, in lanterns, in stories told at night. Each generation adds new ripples, yet the essence remains unchanged. The Deepborn is guardian, patient, eternal, always walking in silence. And so this tale closes not with finality, but with flow. Like the tide returning, like rivers meeting sea, like rain falling. The voice of the ocean continues, steady, endless, gentle as breath. If you listen, truly listen, you will hear him even now, in the waves against the shore, in raindrops against your skin. He is there, as he always was, as he always will be. The deep-born Poseidon, unseen hand, everlasting guardian of waters, ever patient, ever present, ever smiling within the depths. The story does not end, for the sea has no ending. And as long as waters flow, his tale flows with them. A reminder that we are not apart from the ocean, but part of it. And that in its rhythm, we find our own eternal song.